Good evening, YouTube friends from all over. This is Jeff with Astroscoop, Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and today is October 17th, 2024. So today is a very, very powerful day in astrology, and it is the full moon. So happy full moon in Aries. Carolyn's here. She says, greetings, greetings. Right back to you. And we'll wait a few minutes. Sometimes people come in late. And I think this is my first live stream I've done on a Thursday ever. I think this is the very first time. I know we've done, obviously, most of them are Fridays. I've done Saturday. I think I did Wednesday. But I think this is Thursday. It's the first time. And Thursday is Thor's Day. It's literally related to Thor in mythology. So Thursday is Jupiter. Today's the Jupiter or Sagittarius day. So that may be a good streak for everyone. And we have a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to finish up Libra. We're going to talk about the last period of Libra. And of course, we're going to talk about this magnificent full moon that we have tonight, or actually occurred this morning, early this morning on the East Coast. And like I said, it's now 7 p.m. and looking to the west, completely pitch black now, totally black. No slight light at all. So that's pretty amazing. So we're in the thick of fall now here, and we're going to talk about the transits. And of course, we're only 5 degrees away from Scorpio. So we're very, very close to the energy shifting from all this Libra energy and shifting into the Scorpio time and Halloween, where most people think and believe that the veil is thinner between this world and other worlds, and that you can communicate with others in various ways. So, of course, this is a great time of year. This is probably my favorite time of year, from probably September to November. Just the weather and everything. Really, really nice. It is getting quite chilly here on the East Coast, though. This morning felt almost wintry. So it's a little early for the intense cold. But maybe that's reflected also in the transits as well, which we're going to talk about. All right, I see someone else popped in. Anyone, if you feel free to ask a question or make a comment. Obviously my goal is to get more of a group going in here, more interactive and fun, so that it's not just me talking with my agenda here, but that we can get examples. We can talk about examples with your chart or the transits, etc., or based on the period that we're talking about. So please share with your family and friends. And if anyone wishes to donate to my channel, this is a tiny, microscopic, small channel that I'm growing. And any person that has a channel on YouTube that's done a few videos knows how much work it is. So I would appreciate any donations if you're so inclined. You could Venmo me, so you could do it via Venmo. It's just at Astroscoop, and you can look that up. If you have any questions or need information, you can contact me or message me in the comments on one of my recent videos, or on this chat, or the live stream and the replay after. So, like I said, we're going to give it a couple minutes before we get into everything. But how's everyone feeling with this full moon? This is particularly, the astrologers were on fire this week on Instagram and X, on fire with the delineations. I watched a video earlier today from a woman, I don't know what country she was in, another country, and she talked about the Aries and Libra energies. It was a 20-minute video, and she did a really good job. and her take was all spiritual. She didn't really talk about the signs per se, or the zodiac, or the planets. View of all of us raising our vibrations, which we're doing. We always have choice too. Every day is a choice to raise our vibrations or lower it. And a lot of astrologers like to do reels or posts about a particular placement in astrology and how it operates at its highest vibration, and then how it operates at its lowest. And we're all human. There's no way, we cannot always operate at our optimal highest behavior, if you will, for whatever placements we have. We are going to fall back into patterns, and especially around new moons and full moons, when all this energy is peaking in the world and in the cosmos, it's peaking. Undoubtedly, the Earth, the planets, animals, we're feeling it. Creatures are feeling it. The Earth's feeling it. So it's going to, even people that feel it doesn't affect you, it does. You just may not be as aware of it, or it didn't affect you the same way that last year's full moon did. But this is very, very, very interesting. And when you get into the, I talk a lot about cusps. So I have a playlist of cusp signs. So if you're born on a cusp, or you know anyone that is, please suggest my cusp playlist of signs to them. And I'm trying to do all the cusp videos. And I'm going to start redoing and updating them as well. But I spend a lot of time on cusp because they're very important, taking two signs blending together. And the cosmic chart tonight and moving forward, there's a lot of strong cusp energy. And that's something that sometimes the casual observer that's interested in astrology misses. And, I've had cusp people that I've done readings for say, I'm a late, Taurus, but I don't feel like a Taurus. I don't really feel that stubborn, or I'm not into material things. I'm much more of a Gemini, or this and that. And that person was a very late Taurus, a cusp degree that was very close to the next sign. So those cusp degrees are critical degrees, and they're very, very important. And it helps you put the puzzle pieces together in the cosmic chart as far as what's really going on. And, I know I do this as well. All astrologers, no matter what level they're at, all astrologers are biased in their presentation. And what I mean by that is we all have an MO, right? We all have an MO of how we see the chart, how we see aspects, fixed stars, asteroids, and the connection to mythology and history and all that. So even the most brilliant astrologers that have written 10 books, they're still biased on some level. They cannot be completely 100% unbiased. And that's why when I watch astrology videos on YouTube, I watch other people, all ages, we're all so wildly different, which is wonderful. It is a melting pot of astrologers and Reiki and tarot people, healing people, that a lot of us are talking about similar content, but we're bringing our own gifts to it, whether it's gifts from this lifetime or last lifetime or other lifetimes. And if you believe in people being hybrids with aliens, or galaxy creatures, whatever, there's a lot of that going around on X. And if you subscribe to that and believe in that, or open-minded to that, you can imagine how many times we have we've grappled with some of these energies that in other times that we're not doing now. So it's really mind-boggling to think about that. But that's kind of where we're at, I think, in the world, and where we're at spiritually. There's so much energies that are intense. There's no way that we can't all move forward and clean house, so to speak. It's just we can't resist it. So it's a very, very important thing. So let's get into, we're going to talk about the transits later and the full moon. We're going to get into Libra 3. So Libra 3 is October 11th to the 18th or 19th. So tonight is the very last period. This weekend is the last period of Libra 3. And then we will be discussing the Libra Scorpio cusp, which is really interesting. And the cusp people, as I always say, cusp people are so unique and kind of special. And it's also difficult to be on a cusp, I think, because you may have the best of both traits, but you may have some of the flaws of both traits. So that's not just the flaws of one sign or the weaknesses of one sign, it's the weaknesses of two. So depending on what cusp it is and what else is lacking in your natal birth chart, it can be very tough. Absolutely. So tonight we're talking about Libra 3, the very, very last dance of Libra. And we're looking at between 16 and 25 or 26 degrees of Libra. And tonight's full moon sun in Libra is at 25 degrees. So like I said, we're very, very careful, very, very close to the cusp and very close to Scorpio. So all these energies are changing very, very fast and very, it's very intense. And Venus is always ruling every decan of Libra. All Libra decans are ruled by Venus, but this particular one is Mercury. Now, the Libra 3 people that I have met in my life are, I would consider them strikingly different than the Libra 2s I talked about last week or Libra 1s that are born in late September, early October. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One is as we move towards the late part of the cycle of the sign, it's a more mature version of the sign. But it's not only a more mature version of the sign, but it's also an older version, if you will, of an adult at this point in the cosmic wheel of life with the 12 signs. This is someone that might be somewhat almost like late 40s or around 50 in the zodiac when we're considering maybe 85 to 90 years of living. So the Libra 3 energy is very different than Libra 2 and Libra 1. They still share Libra qualities that are similar to any Libra, but the Librans I've met this week are especially edgy. There's definitely an edge to Libra 3s born this week. Again, between the October 11th and the 18th or 19th. If you know anyone born that week, I think it'll be clear when I give some examples. But there's something edgy about them. Now, I don't necessarily mean that's negative. Edgy does not necessarily mean negative. If you say, oh, that they're on edge or a little edgy. It could mean edgy, it could mean argumentative. But Libra 3s are characters. They're absolute characters. I've heard other astrologers describe this, so I'm not the first one to think of this. And I met an astrologer a long time ago, probably about 20 years ago. And I remember her agreeing with me when we looked at the Libra charts. She said, kind of seems like Libra 3s are the Leos of the air signs. And I said, yeah, I agree with that. Just the other day, I watched the reel, and what did the astrology guy say? He said, hi, we're Libra, we're Libras. We're the Leos of the air signs. So that's been going around for a long time. So if you think of Libra 3 is a late Libra energy, it's Venus and it's Mercury. So it's much different than the Uranus influence from last week or all Venus. So the Mercury adds a whole nother mental element, and it also adds a sometimes unpredictable and theatrical quality to these Librans born this week. And they are characters. Now, whether you enjoy them being characters or not, is going to depend on your taste, your chart, and your dynamic with them. I find them personally very interesting but not easy to have relationships with or friendships with, not necessarily easy to be around per se. But there's definitely different reasons for that based on, you know, human dynamics and things like that. But Libra 3s are Venus and Mercury. This is the period of like the striving adult. So like I mentioned, someone like in their late 40s or around 50. This is a very mature version of Libra. And the first decadent of Libra, which is all Venus, is pure raw Libra. So it's striving and it's perfectionistic. When we get to, by the time we get to late Libra here, like tonight, which is the 17th, we're looking at, it's still striving, but yet the Libra person has had all this time, if you will, to develop themselves into a more mature version. And that's kind of why they're more theatrical, because they're taking on, a Libra born this week is going to be able to take on more responsibility, and they're just something more of, they're more sturdy and more of a heavyweight type of Libra than other weeks. So probably unfairly, a lot of astrologers will deem the sign of Libra as weak. Well, what does that really mean? The sign of Libra is weak in terms of the sun, because the sun is most potent when it's placed in Aries. It's well placed in Aries. It's completely comfortable in Leo, but Aries is the opposite sign of Aries is Libra. So that's why astrologers say Sun in Libra is weak, and it can be in some ways. But Libras born this week have a almost a power to them and a strength, and are not necessarily weak. Now, their theatrical humor, persona, social persona, it's odd. I've been talking about Libras here. You know, Libras are so contradictory to me. And I don't mean that they're dual. I don't mean that they're dual like a Gemini, like two-faced or two different people, like two different personalities. That's not what I mean. I mean they're contradictory in the sense that Libra is so, they're always complementing and supplementing traits and interactions with others constantly, back and forth, back. No other sign does that more than Libra. You know, Librans like to be alone. They need to be alone, but they absolutely need a partner. So can you imagine being a Libra, how hard that is? Libra 3s need private. They're more private than their theatrical, funny wit would suggest. They're much more private than that. They're very concerned with image. They're very concerned with image, so that they can not necessarily fool you, but they can put on a show. They can put on a show with a big smile and big talking. And what it hides is, it hides that they are really actually very emotional people. They're more emotional than they want to lead on. And that is kind of a theme for air signs in general. But Libras born this period, it hides some of the more serious and emotional aspects of their character. And I'm not sure why. You know, everyone is different. Everyone was raised by different parents. Everyone has different trauma or experiences. Everyone has different charts. And yet how can so many people born under certain periods be so similar, right? It's interesting. How can that be? Because as a trained astrologer, you just start to see it. You start to see it. And with the Libra 3s this week, there's less thought. Now, it doesn't mean they're not thoughtful. All Libras can be very thoughtful, and they put a lot of thought into their plans and their endeavors. They don't like to hurry and make rash decisions. But there's less thought here, and it's more doing. These are doers. That's what I mean. They're a sturdier, stronger Libra. These are doers. Yes, they can still be indecisive, but even with the indecision, I've never met a Libra born this week that wasn't very, very active, almost Aries-like, almost like they're opposite of Aries. Very much doers. They're not just thinkers or talkers. They are doers. And there is a certain power there, a mental power that they have. They're very strong mentally, and they're very sharp and very intelligent. Often have very good memories. They can recall and recollect amazing things. They have a really good ability to take differing points of view and differing memories and put piece those together for people. They're really good at that. But this power that I think that they have, especially the mental power, comes because we're coming up on this cusp that starts the 19th or 20th, which is the Libra Scorpio cusp. And Scorpio adds an element of power. So we're so close, this being, if you're born on the 11th or 12th, you're a week away from the cusp. But if you're born the 15th, 16th today, you're born tomorrow, or you're born Sunday the 19th, you're like so close to the cusp. And then by the 20th, by 12 a.m. on the 20th, if a baby's born, that baby's basically a cusp baby. The baby would still be a Libra. So that's another thing to keep in mind. If you have a baby that's going to be born this weekend, late in the weekend, that's basically a cusper baby, but still a Libra, not a Scorpio. So not until a couple more days, 3 more days. So again, you got to look at that. But yeah, Libra 3s this week, less thought, more doing, very strong doers. And the air here is mercurial. So that's the Mercury influence, or maybe even a Gemini influence, which maybe helps with the theatrical part. These Libras can be very funny, really, really funny. A little sarcasm, a little wit, a little charm, a little bit of making fun of themselves, a little self-deprecating maybe. That would work well with a stand-up comic. I could definitely see Libra 3s doing stand-up comedy. That kind of thing would be right up their alley. But there's mercurial, and it relates to others' ideas. So they are, even though there's less thought because they're always doing and striving, they have the ability to see your point of view. That doesn't mean they like it though. It doesn't mean they even respect it. They will see it, and it will feel like they have your point of view. They're like, okay, I understand this person, but they're still very opinionated. This is definitely a very opinionated week. However you slice it, yes, they can be just and fair, just like Libra 2s, but there's no doubt there's a strength here mentally and opinionated. Now, you could look to their Venus planet, obviously. I talked about last week a little bit, like a lot of Libra people have a Virgo Venus. A lot of Libra people have Scorpio Venus. That's wildly different. Really so different. And then you need to look at their Mercury for this decade. You would need to look at Mercury because it's a co-ruler. So how do they communicate? Being a Libra, is there Libra in Virgo, which is more reticent and shy? Or is it also in Libra? Kind of thing. Or is it in Scorpio? Or is Mercury in Scorpio? Which I've talked to Libras before that have Mercury and Scorpio, and they're obviously more penetrating and a little more decisive than your average Libra. But I watched a lot of reels and videos this week about other astrology people doing Libra facts. I watched probably at least a dozen to get myself ready for this one, and it helped me reframe some of my thoughts about Libra, because one woman who's a Libra, and she's an astrologer, she did this 5-minute reel about why we're indecisive. She said, I'm a Libra. I'm going to tell you why we're indecisive, and it's not for the reasons you think. And this is some of the things I've mentioned in some of my Libra videos. And one thing she said was the fact that many Librans know what they want, but they know that they have to sacrifice A, B, or C to get that D. To get the D prize, you can't have A, B, and C kind of thing. So that's hard. and you can't have your cake and eat it too. You know, Libra threes could be, I want my cake and I want to eat it too. Well, just like anyone else, the more honest and transparent you are in relationships with people, people can decide for them if you want to have an open relationship. Some people are fine with that. But if you're honest about it and then the other person knows where you're coming from and they're okay with that, then that's a different ballgame. If you're dishonest or you withhold that you're going to see other people and you're saying to this, the Libra person saying to this person, we are exclusive, and you're not. And then that person got the idea, well, I thought we were exclusive. Oh, we're not. So, you know, the transparency is really important. Obviously, all the signs can be dishonest at times or tell a little white lie. But I have seen many, many astrologers talk about Libra, probably unfairly, about how there's many Librans that they've met that have lied to them. And obviously, there's a lot of factors with that. Maturity is a huge factor in any sign, right? In any period of the cosmic zodiac cycle. Maturity, just in general. You know, we can all act immature at times. We can all feel immature, no matter, even if we're 90. But you know, if someone is gone through a few Saturn hits, you know, you get your Saturn return around 28 to 30, then at 35 to 37 you get another one. You know, if you're getting into your 40s, let's say, and you're at another Saturn threshold in your early 40s and you're not growing up per se and you're resisting it, then obviously you're most likely going to be operating in the lower vibration of your period, of your sign, most likely. So others' ideas, so important to them, but it doesn't necessarily mean they respect your idea, if that makes any sense. So I'm not saying that they're mean, but I've met Libras where I felt like, oh, they accepted me or they accepted my idea, only to find out that they had their own agenda and their own idea the whole time that they wanted. So again, any sign can be like that, but that's just something I've observed for Libra threes. And I call it swirls of wind when they're upset. Swirls of wind. So does that mean a full-blown temper? No. How often are you going to see a Libra 3 act up in a group and be loud and swear and be? Very rarely. I think very rarely. Now, one-on-one behind closed doors, when that Libran isn't with anyone else, again, Librans are very concerned with image, whether this is conscious or unconscious about the image they present to their family, to their friends, their coworkers, or people that they respect is up for debate. But Librans can be very calculating about this. So if a Libran is immature or insecure, that's where the manipulation comes into play with others, telling people what you want to hear to get something back. But it swirls of wind when upset. There's something, they can have a real bite mentally when they are upset with their words, and it will come out in different ways, but they can be volatile. It's not in the same way that their opposite Aries would be volatile, or like another fire sign. But that swirl of wind, especially with Mercury too, any influence of Mercury can add a little volatility to the chart. So there's no doubt, just like any other sign, just like any of us, Libra 3s get upset. But again, that more emotional part of them is underneath, and it's not something they always want to face. All right, we're almost about halfway through. So that's not necessarily something they want to face. So in order to integrate their energies better, they could take cues from some of the other signs. That's the beauty on how every sign makes an alignment or an aspect with every other sign, because no matter how well we think we're doing, or how well adjusted we are, and how healthy we are, there's always ways we can improve and grow that the other signs and energies and planets can teach us. as much as we don't want to admit it. Absolutely. You know, I admire, one thing I like about Libra is their ability, more often than not, to not lose their cool under situations, to keep their cool, even if those emotions are starting to swirl underneath, but they're keeping their cool. So I appreciate that. Whereas some of the other signs, it's not as easy to do. And you're going to be, feeling that argument quicker. So Libra will argue with you, Libra 3 will argue with you, but also has that ability that they want to control their emotions too. So action is very important to this decadent. All Libras are active, but especially when we get to the celebrities. And if you know anyone born this week, you'll know that they're leading or they've led a very active life, socially, mentally, either lots of reading, lots of writing, lots of music, lots of art, maybe teaching. And there's no way they could do it, not with the Mercury influence. They have to keep learning. They have to keep moving. They're always doing it, even if they're like laid back about it. Like, you know how Libras have a kind of a laid back quality to them, but doesn't mean that they're lazy. They're gathering information. And it can translate into workaholic tendencies. So the action is kind of similar to the opposite, which is Aries. And this week particularly, they can be kind of workaholic in some ways. And it's kind of similar to the first decan of Libra, but the workaholic tendencies can be there if they're trying to make up for lacks in their personal life, which any sign can do, obviously. But this can definitely be something in late Libra going into even the cusp, the Libra Scorpio cusp people, or could be possibly a little obsessive about certain things. And that can definitely translate into work or volunteering or hobbies kind of thing. So Librans born this week, as all Librans are, tend to be very, very knowledgeable. I love having conversations with Libra people that when it's safe, like if I'm having conversations with a Libran that it's not too personal, at least for me, that's my comfort zone. That's good. Now, being a male, I have certain dynamics in my chart and certain personality traits. So I will either align or clash with certain Libras, male or female, and also it depends on their chart. But generally, I really enjoy talking to the Libra women or planets in Libra with the knowledge base. It's really good. Yet these Librans can be overconfident, though. There's no doubt that there's a kind of a they can be bloated mentally, the overconfidence. So I'm not sure if that comes from the Mercury influence, co-ruler influence, or if this is the last part with the degrees coming closer to Scorpio, but they can definitely come across as overconfident at times. And Libra 3 should be a little more aware of that so that they can balance, that's their word, so they can balance that out with the other signs so that they're coming across as confident, but not overconfident. And again, are they overcompensating for something? I always say that the air sign planets in any chart, now again, it depends on the aspects, but in a general sense, the air signs are kind of mentally competitive. So the competition is mental, usually, not so much personality or physical or, or like a sports or an activity, but it's usually mental. Could be games, it could be chess, it could be checkers, it could be puzzles, that kind of thing. That's where air likes to put their kind of competitive spirit in general. But yeah, they have to definitely watch the overconfident ways. So a lesson is for them to devote, or devotion is a word they should employ more. Devote time to feelings. Now they can make these Libra 3 people can make dedicated spouses and dedicated parents quite well, a little more than the other decans of Libra. And obviously, Libra is the sign of marriage and is the sign of partnership. So there's always a strong urge to merge, a strong urge to merge long term with someone. So, but they would be wise to devote more time to their feelings, because they are, again, they are more emotional than they come off as. You know, I knew a Libra born this week once, a long time ago, and the person, it was a group of friends, and I didn't know the person that well, but the person was pretty easygoing and charming in the group, got along with the group pretty well. But then the person started to show, for whatever reason, started to tell us more about their life and started to show different traits. And then I realized that that person was much more emotional than that Libra facade, if that makes any sense. And a lot of astrologers agree on this. There's almost a Libra facade. I'm not saying it's fake. I'm not saying it's fake, but Libra rising people have this as well. It's I don't know. It's a certain presentation. It's a certain presentation, and any of us could have that with our rising sign, or a predominance of a sign in a chart. We can take the easy way out sometimes with the signs. So we have to keep checking in with ourselves to making sure that we're being honest. That's just keep checking in. But devote time to feelings. That person that started to show their colors, that person had Venus in Scorpio, I think. So obviously underneath, they were a very feeling person and more emotional than their personality would suggest in a group. So that's important. Now, of course, I don't know what that person's rising sign was. I just remember they had Venus in Scorpio, but I don't remember the moon, the rising, or anything else. So there's a lot more to put together there. And obviously, you would always look, like I mentioned, the Venus in Scorpio, always look to Venus. So that would be really good. So these folks are lively, but they can also be over dramatizing. So there's a big word there, over dramatizing. These are definitely the Leos of the air signs. This one decan. I wouldn't say all Libras are like that. I've met quite a few Libras in my life, and I coached a Libra maybe about 10 years ago. I did some coaching with a business owner who was very talented. He had 2 different businesses going, and he wanted my help astrologically. And he was very talented, very smart, but he was so scattered. He was very scattered. He was doing too much, and he wanted to be everything to everybody. He also had Gemini in his chart, but he was overly dramatic. I mean, he was just overly dramatic. And I was telling him, you need to bring it down to earth, and you need to slow down and focus more. Take 1 or 2 things and focus. But he was trying to be too lively and kind of please every group he was part of. And so that comes into a star this weekend, this full moon, this sun full moon is connected to Arcturus, which is a really cool star in the constellation. And it can bring friends or favors, and it can bring a lot of charm and popularity, but it can also bring a sort of lazy, immoral kind of bent to the personality. So if the person is being manipulated and they're immature or their moral compass is poor, this would not be good to have in their chart, especially if it has any hard aspects that would cause it to act in a immoral or sort of creepy way, for lack of a better term, creepy. Libra is definitely a sign that can do really well in life because they can be very talented, very smart. They have a gift for diplomacy and charm, tactful. So Libra has a lot going for them. But I've seen a lot of Libra planets take the easy way out and not be so honest or fully honest, and not be as engaged or include themselves as much as they could. Just because they're being social at a party, it doesn't mean they're sharing anything with anybody. It doesn't mean they're including themselves with anybody. That could be a show. That could just be their group persona. And then they're all quiet and introverted when everyone leaves because they want their alone time and they need to recharge. So that's what Libras need that. I mean, Libras really do need peace. And if they cause discord, they can cause it. They can attract it. They can cause it. But they still need to get back to that peace, even if it was their fault. So there's some names here. Sean Combs, who's Diddy. Ugh, I'm not going to go into that. Woody Allen, all sorts of creepy problems with him. Warren Buffett, another weird, amazingly gifted financial guy, but also weird, creepy guy. I mean, these are all men that have that planet conjunct Arcturus, and it's also connected to Bootes, which is the constellation, and that is all about excess. So you can imagine, in this world, men are celebrated for acting out. Unfortunately, for lack of a better phrase, men act out in a lot of ways, both good and bad. Women don't as much, but when men act out, it's often enabled. Whereas if a woman acts out, it's not going to be enabled as much. So when you look at famous people that get into snares of power and fame, it's not, these fixed stars are quite important. These degrees are important because it really shines a spotlight on some of those the negative potential of the signs. But Arcturus is an interesting star that this constellation of this decan is connected to and Boots. So the image I mentioned, concerned. They're very concerned with their image. And, Libras can be fluffy with that. They can be glitzy and superficial with it, or they can be very serious. I mean, if they happen to be an interior designer or a clothing designer or something, they would take that very seriously. They'd probably do very well at it and not just be superficial. I want to look good or I want to look attractive, sort of thing. As I mentioned last week, and I probably mentioned in every Libra video, you'll very rarely ever meet a Libra person of any ethnicity that isn't attractive on some level. There's usually something physically attractive about them, with their smile, their eyes, their countenance, their personality, their charm, their sense of humor. That's why I say Libras have a lot going for them. And Libras have that. There's always an attractiveness there. But it's really important, I think, for the whole concept and essence of Libra to not take the easy way out, so to speak. And that would also come into play with someone that has the node in Libra as well. So the image is cool, but again, that hides repressive emotions. They can also be repressed because there's not a natural expression there as much as maybe a fire sign might. A fire sign might measure it out and express it more. Fire sign doesn't always do it positively, but they'll get it out more. So if you can get your emotions and your thoughts out in doses, hopefully the people around you can handle it. The doses, it's a little more of like, ooh, I'm burning myself and getting this stuff out. But this is hard. This can be hard for Libras. And they get repressive. It's also because they're coming up on that cusp period of Scorpio, which is that introverted Scorpio energy. And then again, Libra 3s born this week, if they have Scorpio in their chart, and they almost always do, almost all Libras I've done charts on almost always have a Scorpio planet. Again, that just adds to the allure and the mystery of them, but it also adds introversion, and it can add secretiveness. So they can not necessarily reveal what's really going on. This period is also the herdsman. It comes back to mythology, translates to the herdsman and bears. So those are a couple symbols for this week. I looked up an actress in Hollywood, this really pretty actress who was a horse wrangler in her spare time when she wasn't acting. And she's born this week. I can't remember what her name was. But you're going to meet many Librans that may have an affinity for animals, specifically bears or horses. And herdsman, maybe herding sheep on a farm or something. If they are outdoorsy, if they're an outdoorsy type of Libra and more rural type of Libra as opposed to the urban Libra, maybe you're a city Libra. Obviously, those would be different. But yeah, very interesting there. Um, and obviously, the opposite, we always talk about the opposites here at Astroscoop. I'm always big on opposites because the opposite is where it's the mirror, or it's, as psychologists say, it's the shadow, right? It's the shadow period. The traits we have in ourselves or the traits we don't have is in that other person. So, keep in mind, whatever sign you are, whatever period you are, you have a complete polar opposite. Now, that doesn't mean you're literally completely opposite in terms of personality, but at least in the zodiac wheel and on the cosmic wheel, you are by degrees you are exactly opposite, and you will have similar traits because you're both the same quality, but you'll also be quite different. So there's a lot of integration there. So in 6 months we'll be talking about Aries 3 as we're cruising through springtime, and that's a more combative time as far as the Aries time and spring and the animals coming forth and everything. And if you had an Aries 3 and a Libra 3 together, they would both be people of action and strong opinions. So again, that could go really poorly or really great, depending on what it is that they're both supporting. So if they're supporting the same job or cause, that could go really well. But Aries 3s are very protective, and Libra 3s can go either way. They can be, I wouldn't say they're possessive of their loved ones necessarily, unless they're getting closer to the cusp period, maybe, or early Scorpio. But Aries 3 is the opposite, and it's also a very dynamic opposite. Aries and Libra is always dynamic. That's what we're going to talk about in a little bit, about this full moon being very dynamic. And it's the Jupiter decan from Aries. So in 6 months, we're dealing with more Jupiter energy, Jupiter, Mars, and here we're dealing with Venus and Mercury. So just how we use our energy. All right, so let's get to the celebrities. So again, I always pick celebrities that are born only this period. So not just any Libra person during the month, but I pick people that are born between the 11th of October and the 18th or 19th. And again, sometimes some of these people can fall on a cusp, and it's kind of hard for me to discern whether I think by reading about them or if it's someone I'm very familiar with their music or their acting, as far as whether I think they're a true decan, a true Libra 3, or are they like a Libra Scorpio cusp. Sometimes people are kind of on the line there. The first I have is Margot Kidder, and she was the actress in Superman, opposite Christopher Reeve, also another Libra. So you had two Libras there battling for their wits and understanding the Clark Kent and Superman dynamic there, which is interesting. And she had Venus in Virgo, so much different. And I think we talked about Christopher Reeve, another decan, and I think he had the Venus in Libra. Then we have Pharoah Sanders. He just had his birthday the other day. He's a legendary saxophone player. It's amazing, if you've noticed on my last few live streams, how many jazz musicians I've mentioned. And I haven't done that on purpose, but I'm noticing that there are so many Libra musicians, which makes sense with Venus, right? But jazz. So what is it about jazz music, and what is it about the talent that you need to have about the harmonies and the melodies and the skill of jazz music to learn jazz music? Like, it's one thing if you're just a pop musician, right? You could just play pop saxophone or piano that's simple, 3 or 4 chords. But to play jazz, like that's improvisational, or that's looking at multiple multi-chord arrangements, that's pretty interesting. So that says something for the whole essence of Libra, right? And I'll bet there's a lot of Libra people born this week that are musicians, um, definitely. And I would say almost any instrument would be good for Libra, but I would say especially, like saxophone, piano, organ, synthesizers, mostly, I would say, or maybe even the wind instruments, maybe even flute or piccolo. I could see Libra doing that as well. Um, so he's really cool. Sammy Hagar is the former lead singer for Van Halen, a rock group, and he's a longtime rock kind of icon, kind of a crazy theatrical kind of guy, and he has his Venus is Libra Scorpio cusp, so it's kind of interesting. Thomas Dolby, he's a British musician. He gave us the song "She Blinded Me with Science," which is a very kind of interesting, dynamic, but also slightly moody, serious song. If you listen to it, it's got a little bit of the Libra, uh, more darkness under it, and that's more reflective of a late Libra going into this cusp Scorpio period. Really, really cool. Virgil, old school Virgil from way long ago, the Roman poet. He was born this week, and he was also, I believe, he was also born uh, at that time in civilization on a full moon period. I believe he has tonight's full moon, Libra, Moon in Aries. So that's interesting. Noah Webster from Connecticut. He was a lexicographer, and he was very, very involved, obviously, in words and that kind of talent. And now we have the Webster Dictionary after him, after Noah. So that's kind of interesting. So you're always going to have good conversations with Libras. I've talked to, especially the other air signs. I've talked to other like Aquarius, Gemini. You're going to talk. You guys can talk, guys and gals. You can talk to Libra all night, all night. I mean, that's something that will always be there. Whether it goes anywhere or whether it's of any value or substance is another thing, but it's definitely something that can happen. Then we have Rita Hayworth. What a beautiful actress, classic actress, and she had her Venus in Libra as well. So Sun and Venus in Libra, obviously a sex symbol and very much in touch with the goddess energy as a actress. But then we have male Libra actors. He's great. He's from Laverne and Shirley, Lenny and Swiggy, and was really good in that. But what I like, he's an amazing character actor that's been in a lot of TV and theater events. But what I like him the best in is the movie Clue, where he plays Mr. Green, and he's so good. He's so good. He's so funny, insecure, anxious, but he's charming. He's smart. He's great, and he's also in a show called Better Call Saul from the Breaking Bad franchise from a few years ago, where he plays a very eccentric character. So I would recommend him. Michael McKean he's great, and obviously he's got that really strong toothy Libra smile. Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates, probably one of the best singer-songwriter vocalists in pop history. That's very, very, most people probably wouldn't argue with that. And Hall & Oates has so many hits, and then he has so many deep tracks that are subtle hits that weren't big hits. He goes way back to his solo stuff. Daryl Hall is amazing. I mean, Private Eyes, I Can't Go For That. Very insightful, very penetrating, and also very extremely pleasing, pleasant music for pop. It appeals to people. Daryl's Venus is in Scorpio, so he puts a lot of passion into his music, more so, I think, than the average Libra. Then we have John Lithgow. He's a wonderful, classically trained actor. Now he's it's debatable whether he's a cusp. He's right on the cusp of the cusp. So I wasn't sure whether I was giving him a Libra 3 or I was going to mention him next week for Libra Scorpio cusp. but he could be both. But I do see him as a very theatrical, strong-minded actor and so intelligent. He is great. And he played a villain in the series Dexter. Of course, he was in all kinds of thriller and horror movies in the 80s and 90s, thriller mystery movies, as well as dramas. He's done everything. And he's done comedy, Third Rock from the Sun on TV. So John Lithgow, extremely talented, with a Venus that's a Virgo Libra cusp Venus. Very witty, very smart. Oscar Wilde, very much a character, controversial character from history, right? Mr. Libra with Venus and Libra in his writing and his ideas and his presentation. Lots of Libra. So you got to remember that Libra is this, as we come to the close of the hour, Libra is this sign of contradictions, but it's also this sign of being masculine and feminine, being aggressive and passive. You have Venus, which is yin. The essence of Venus is more feminine and receptive, but yet it's a cardinal sign. It's an air sign, which is masculine expression, outward and more assertive, or more ego and less of the feminine principle. So, Librans can go either way. That's why I think in their creative, in their art, so to speak, in their art, whatever art they do, and usually Librans, their work is their art or their art is their work, or it should be, ideally, for them to be happy Libras. It's just amazing how it's a natural for them to do that, even though the men here, the men can be a little weird, a little off, effeminate even, and that doesn't even have anything to do with their sexuality. It's just because of that combination of a little air. It's a yang sign, but it's Venus, right? Carolyn says, interesting info on Arcturus and very impressive research of celebrities. Oh, thank you. Yeah. This decan of Libra is definitely, it stands out for all the air signs to me. It stands out as a very strong theatrical week. And then we have Montgomery Clift, who has a very Libran face to me, old school actor, very symmetrical features, and his Venus was in Scorpio. So that added a whole different element. So I think, the Venus, a Libra with the Venus in Scorpio is going to have more of a dramatic flair, possibly in their music or their acting. Whereas a Libra with the Venus in Virgo is going to be more about work. It's going to be a little less passion, and it's going to be more about the craft of work. And they're going to put their love, they'll put their love into whatever hobby or work that they do. That's how you'll see these Libras. That's how they'll show a lot of love, is through however they use their Venus, if you know their Venus sign. And then we have the last one on this list is Richard Carpenter, one half of the Carpenters. His sister, of course, was Karen Carpenter. So another wonderful duo like Hall & Oates. And Richard Carpenter and Karen Carpenter grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, and they had a very simple life growing up in the 50s and 60s in Connecticut. But Richard was a very accomplished musician by the time he was a preteen. So he decided around high school that he wanted to do music professionally. And Karen was 4 years younger than him. So that's funny. Karen was, we lost Karen. Karen was a Pisces, but she was very active in sports. And she was very rough and tumble kind of girl. She did sports and played drums. So most people don't know that the fragile Karen Carpenter, with those beautiful melodies, she was an amazing jazz drummer. Go on YouTube and search it up. I've watched videos of her. I only learned this like a few years ago about Karen Carpenter, that she's actually a drummer first and foremost before a singer or a songwriter. So she's an amazing drummer. She's got serious flair. But Richard was the shy, introverted Libra who needed a lot of alone time, and he was often inside. He did not like outdoor activities, and he was inside always composing and listening to Tchaikovsky and classical and jazz. And then he got this kind of pop, this kind of grand, some critics called it bland kind of pop style that flourished in the 70s and 80s that was so clean, so calm and clean and Venusian that he did all these melodies for his sister to sing. But yeah, what an undeniable talent Richard Carpenter was and is. And he had the Scorpio Sag Venus, which I don't see that too often. He had a very late degree of Scorpio Venus, almost Sag. So that would indicate that he was more experimental and adventurous in his music and in his craft than an average Libra of this week. So between the Mercury, which he obviously was extremely brilliant and probably had a very high IQ, and had advanced classical music training, he also had that influence of the Scorpio Sag there for the passion for his music. And Richard had the moon in Gemini, so total air, whereas Karen was a Pisces moon in Leo. But Karen was much more feeling and more intuitive, more dramatic. So it's like Richard had the leading ability and the structure, and Karen had the spiritual aspect of it. So that's kind of how they put that. That's kind of how I see that, putting together the Libra and Pisces there for the Carpenters. So pretty amazing. Now, I've listened to a lot of their music. I do agree with the critics. Some of it's a little bland or saccharine. Could have used back in the day maybe a little more oomph, but nonetheless very, very crafty. All right, so we're getting to the end here. We're at 8 o'clock now. We have a couple people in. I just want to say before I forget that anyone that gets this on the replay, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. About 80% of you are not subscribed. So please sign into YouTube. You have to sign in with Google. So anyone that just watches a video on YouTube and you click the like or thumbs up, that doesn't subscribe you. So you have to sign in and then choose subscribe. So please do that if you haven't already. And also, if you're so inclined, you can donate to the channel via Venmo. I have a Venmo at Astroscoop, and any amount is welcome with no judgment. I'm a very small channel, and I have some good plans for 2025, and we are growing. I hope to to have some new things for you guys and gals for the early part of the year. And I want to I'd like to get a guest either on the phone, or if I could figure out up here, like do a little video box of sharing, or someone next to me here in my studio. I could get someone physically next to me that wants to be on camera to interview. I would love to do that, even for 15 minutes. Now, obviously, I don't know that too many viewers that live near me, but if I happen to find out of a viewer that lived, let's say, within a half hour or an hour of me, maybe that could be considered, where we could talk and then maybe look at someone's chart and something like that. So those are the kinds of things I'm looking for. And then before we talk about the chart, I just want to mention here, my lovely daughter she drew this, like, I don't know if this is a solar flare, but this is something in the constellation, the galaxy, Dysnomia. It's an orbit, and it's like a ball. And this is Aries, an asteroid. So Aries is something akin to like Pluto now as a dwarf planet. So this is going back to the 2000s, where researchers discovered Aries, and some astrologers, especially the astrologers that are into literature and deep mythology, like the real hardcore mythology people that write the articles for those websites, they feel that Aries can be a hidden ruler of Libra or a co-ruler with Venus. They think that Aries is an influence on Libra because of this time. And Eris was a feminine warrior, a kind of similar to Aries, Ares, the Aries god persona. And Eris was the female equivalent, and she was actually about causing strife and discord and war. So that's something interesting, because that's something that Libras don't like. Libras don't like conflict, discord, or war. But what that tells me, now, I don't know, I'm not sure if Eris is strong enough as a dwarf planet to be considered a co-ruler, if it really is that strong. But this could be insight into why Libra people or Libra planets don't want conflict, but because of their indecision and sometimes their penchant for debate or argument can cause it. So any of us can cause discord or strife with others, and we all have to take accountability when we know it's our fault, or it's mostly, it does take two to tango, but sometimes it's more on one person. But that could be insight into why Librans attract discord sometimes as much as they want the peace and the harmony. And that goes for all Libra planets, Libra midheaven, Libra on an angle on the first house, fourth house, seventh house. That's where you're going to not want conflict, but yet you might attract it. And that's a lesson to learn to be okay with it and try to work it out, because conflicts ultimately can lead to a lot of growth. Now, I'm not talking about enormous conflicts that are really unhealthy, but little small conflicts or day-to-day conflicts can lead to some good growth. So tonight's full moon, quite amazing. So here we have the full moon transits here, and you can see over here, this is Sun at 25 of Libra. Now you also have asteroid. Look at all this Libra here. You have Sun 25, asteroid 24, another asteroid 18. It's Juno there, and those are all conjunct in this late degree of Libra. And it's interesting because that Libra is going to be Scorpio soon. So all this Libra energy is quite fleeting. This strong Libra energy is going to leave quickly. And then Mercury is in Scorpio. So that lends a very intense research, kind of a research bent to all of us right now. I even felt this week when I was doing research for my Libra 3 live stream, I felt like I was doing more deeper research than I usually do for some reason, and that could be the Mercury in Scorpio. But we have all these configurations, and then we have this configuration. Here's Pluto. Everyone's talking about. Every astrologer on the planet is doing videos and posts about the 29-degree Capricorn. Right? You're probably if you're an avid watcher of astrology, you're probably so sick and tired of hearing that's all astrologers have to talk about right now. And yet, and I'm doing it too. So then you have Uranus in Taurus here. You have Vesta here in Virgo. So that's trine. So that's beautiful. That's good. Those circles is an Earth trine. And that really helps us out with this incredibly intense cardinal cross of Pluto, Mars at 23 of Cancer. Here's the moon, which is at 1 degree of Taurus right now. But of course, this morning it was in late Aries, which is the full moon. And then, of course, the sun and Juno in Libra at 24 and 25. So you're talking about square, talking about opposition here, square here, square, square, square. So lots and lots of cardinal tension. And this is what I mentioned before. This is Pluto's last grab at power. It's a last ditch effort. All the stuff that's happening in the world is coming up. The pavement is breaking per se. The plumbing is coming. The sewage pipes are bursting with truth and information and structures bursting. That's Pluto and Capricorn. It's all coming out. And this is good. It's scary, It's scary for some people, but if you're willing to be courageous and look at what's really happening in the world and how it affects you and who you are and how you want to change, um, especially people that have late cardinal sign degrees, like 26 to 29 in a cardinal sign, or early fixed, as I mentioned before, like 0, 1, or 2 of fixed signs there as we go into Aquarius, because this is really, really interesting. And we have Pluto is going to go retrograde. So between now and May of next year, so keep that in mind, between now and May, so just about half a year, we have this Pluto moving forward, going back into Aquarius, not Capricorn. I'm not going to see Capricorn again in our lifetime. And then it's going to go retrograde. But it'll be in Aquarius. So then it will stop and pause, and it will start doing and cleaning house in Aquarius matters. No more Capricorn. So all the power and the subterranean, stuff we're seeing, both literal and metaphorical, the subterranean junk, this human trafficking things that are coming up, and money mismanagement, racketeering, and money laundering, and crime, and all this stuff. People are, people are coming out, and they're exposing. So this is very, very important here. And this is interesting. Chiron is at 21 of Aries right now. Chiron is the wounded healer. So as I've been talking about for a while now this year, Aries planets are maybe feeling certain wounds. It's not, my guess, it's not from this childhood. So don't go blaming your moms and dads for being the worst moms and dads. Maybe they weren't great, but it's not responsible. That energy is not all responsible for those interactions. It could be a very, very small part, but most likely this Chiron, depending on where it is in your chart, here in this baby's chart, if a baby was born right now, it would be in his or her 12th house of hidden, very, very hidden pain, going way back. But it's most likely to another life. It's most likely to another time where you were a different sign. And this pain is something different. So now it's just pain to release and work out. It doesn't have to hurt like it did before. It doesn't have to, we can let it go. We can let it, and it's okay to let it go. And it rules the cheeks. This degree rules the cheeks. So any Aries person that has Chiron conjunct their Aries planet, 18, 19, 21 to maybe almost 25, be careful of your head. Aries rules the head, teeth, the head, the nose, the teeth, but maybe and the cheeks. That would mean don't get into a fight, don't get punched, don't hurt someone else. Your cheek, maybe that means your teeth too. TMJ, I don't know. I'm not a medical astrologer, but I do dabble in some of the ailments sometimes and do some research on that. But if you really want to know, find a medical intuitive person that does that. That's all they do, is they're a medical intuitive. That would be very helpful for anybody. But yeah, watch the cheeks for Aries people, especially people with those degrees. And but the good news in all this is, here we have this Earth trine. So with all the stuff that's happening on the Earth that's negative, the Earth trine is structure, and it means that business is getting done. So the money problems that certain outlets and certain institutions are trying to scare you with, money is not as bad. The scarcity of resources is not as bad as people say. I really don't think it is. Should you be prepared during this cold and flu and COVID season? Should you have extra water and candles? Absolutely. Should you have a first aid kit? Yes. Extra towels, extra garbage bags? Definitely. Maybe even a portable potty or something. That doesn't hurt, especially if the lights go out. But I don't think things are as bad as people are trying to scare people and divide people. So this Earth trine is really good. And all this retrograde energy here is just pause. So I've been talking about that for months. It's just all pause. It doesn't mean everything is reverting back to something negative. It's just pause. And here, the full moon, everything comes to a head. It's peak. So that's what most astrologers and tarot people talk about when talk about the moon. Is it's peak time, the full moon. It's head, and then we go into the waning gibbous period in a couple days as we go into Taurus. Now, keep in mind, 3 days before and 3 days after the full moon, including today, it's at its peak. So you may not want to have the most intense interactions with people if you're having a disagreement with someone or you're entering a relationship, that's getting more serious or something. You might want to wait till it wanes a little bit. As it goes into Taurus, things calm down a little bit. Then we wane into Gemini and Cancer. So that's how the full moon goes. And then obviously the word wane as opposed to wax. Remember Karate Kid, wax on, wax off. It's a little dad humor. Sorry. And waning Cancer. And then, of course, on the 24th, 1 week, we go into the waning stops, and then we hit another quarter of the moon phase cycle, which is a square. So then that goes into, we'll be into Scorpio. Scorpio and Leo are square. So it'll be Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Leo. And that is the heart. So we go from the head to the heart. So tonight the peak is the head, and then we go through various parts of their body to the heart in the last quarter, kind of thing. And then we keep waning, crescent, all the way to Halloween, 2 weeks. We crescent and we wane to the 31st. So that's the whole moon cycle there for 2 more weeks. Then on November 1st, it culminates in the new moon, the next major cycle. And that's when we'll have the sun and moon in spooky Scorpio. Woo! Spooky Scorpio. Wow. So anybody that has those Scorpio planets, if they're relatively early to middle, you'll be getting the conjunction, not late Scorpio, but that will be the conjunction. And then, of course, it goes all through Scorpio, and we'll talk about that. But that's a lot what's going on, and it involves a lot of these asteroids too, which is a whole nother deep podcast. Some astrologers only concentrate on the mythology of the god and goddess energy with the asteroids. And I know astrologers that I watch videos, all they do is talk about those. They don't even talk about the planets and signs anymore. Like they've moved beyond that. So that's cool. I think that's really cool. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And tonight is Thursday. I might keep in mind, I think there's 2 or 3 people watching. I know a couple friends that were going to come in. They didn't make it, probably because they didn't know I was doing it on Thursday. They probably still think it's tomorrow night at 7. I'm not doing my live stream tomorrow night. Tonight was I'll be out tomorrow night. So tonight was a substitute. It's Thursday. Today's the 17th. But I'm going to plan on Sunday morning, possibly 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm not sure, it's not 100%, but I might do a mini live stream 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Sunday, which would be the 20th, Sunday, October 20th. So keep that in mind. It might be at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And right before I go, I want to mention thank you to all my viewers that's helped my channel to grow in the last month. My views have really exploded in the last month, not in a successful YouTube sort of way, but in terms of my standards, I'm very happy with it. It means I'm doing something right. I'm going to keep plugging. We got to keep moving. There's no, it's like that song. Remember that song? Ain't no stopping us now. McFadden and Whitehead. Ain't no stopping us. So that's what we got to do. And I need your help. But we're going to continue to do that. And so be on the lookout. I'm going to try to do more live streams now that we're in and it's dark and cold. And namaste and happy full moon to everybody. And, with the full moon in Aries, I didn't talk much about the Aries part, but the full moon in Aries is really a lesson in patience for all of us. This is the peak. So any of us, not just Aries planets, any of us, if we're being a little too impatient with our loved ones or our friends or ourselves, just chill. Just it's mostly for ourselves. Be patient. Give yourself a break and just be patient. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. And again, we have the Libra Scorpio cusp coming up, and then in late October, right before the last quarter, we're going to enter Scorpio. So that'll be great. Hope everyone has a great week. Happy full moon. We'll talk to you soon.